everyone. My name is Ricardo Trujillo, and I'm one of the partners at GRF CPAs and Advisors. And I am joined today by my colleague, Mac Lilliard, as well as Neil Horikoshi of the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation. Neil is the former CEO and Executive Director of AAMDS, who has recently retired and has graciously volunteered some of his time with us today and explain some of the proactive measures that his organization implemented during the pandemic and also the associated positive effects that they experienced. Thank you, Neil, obviously, for taking the time to speak with us today and share your very valuable information with us and obviously with the team. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit about something, and then we'll turn it over with a couple questions.
I think just a little bit about the organization. So we're the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation. We've been around for 37 years, and we were founded by patients and actually run by patients. And actually, I'm an aplastic anemia patient survivor, which is why I've been associated with this organization for the last 20 years since I was diagnosed, and why I was passionate about joining the organization again to do it as one of my last roles before my final retirement.
That's awesome. That is so great news. And I'm sure you're leaving some great, valuable information for the organization and have provided some really positive feedback. But Mike, why don't we dive into some of the quick questions that we have for Neil?
Sure. All right. So I guess to start us off, Neil, what would you say are the top 2 to 3 proactive measures that the organization took prior to the COVID-19 pandemic that strategically positioned the organization to be so well prepared to transition during the pandemic?
Mac, that's a great question, because in 2019, as you can imagine, many employees these days would like to work remote. But in order to work remote, you have to have the necessary IT equipment. So we embarked in fourth quarter of 2019 to get the necessary fundings and put it into the budget for 2020, get it approved by the board of directors. And lo and behold, by January and February, we're getting brand new, powerful i7, the state-of-the-art laptops delivered together with all the monitors. So we were well poised in first quarter 2020 to actually begin working remotely. And we also had a new IT provider as well. And that combination enabled us to literally flip a switch, and actually all of us could work remotely, and then implement Microsoft Teams to really engage with each other very quickly. So that's how we did it very quickly from 2019, 2020, but you have to prepare for it.
That's very good news. That's very good news. I know it takes a lot of work, and that actually takes us to another key question, So what were the biggest benefits of actually being able to transition to a remote environment, without issue and continue operations when so many other organizations seem to struggle during this transition, Obviously, you mentioned Microsoft Teams being one of them, but talk to us about some of the biggest benefits of being able to do this transition.
So one thing for at least our organization, this question about being able to work remotely was always on the table, well before I even came on board. And like anything else, we all had desktop systems is not very conducive to sort of say you can now work from home, because then it's what technology. And because this is a GRF, webinar, it's also tied to security, the type of system you use, the safeguards of individual computers as opposed to the office computers. So until we did that, we really couldn't, really work from home. But like I said, because we got brand new equipment, it was all security proof. We're very concerned about cybersecurity, as well as all the other security measures that we put in place through our performance plans, as well as our employee handbook. All of that became very relevant as we got into 2020. And more importantly, because employees could work from home, the moment we started getting the laptops, it was employee satisfaction. And, I, for one, I think, if many of your viewers, live in the DC metropolitan area, we all know traffic is a bear. So if I didn't have to commute the half hour in traffic, I'm happy. And if I'm happy, all the employees are happy, let me tell you.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And it's really handling that cybersecurity. I agree with you, how important that is, nowadays. And that's something that we are keen on when we actually work with our clients to make sure that that they have the safety measures and procedures to make sure that cybersecurity is obviously one of those things they're constantly thinking about, because obviously reputation is at risk, Mac.
And just out of curiosity, had you done any sort of assessment leading up to this that helped your organization identify any vulnerabilities or anything? Or is this just something you all were being proactive about? You just knew that this was kind of the way the environment was changing, and you thought you'd just get out ahead of the curve?
We were actually proactive of that. I actually came from the IT industry where I spent 30 years. And so for me, I was very focused on, having the most up-to-date systems, and most importantly, laptops and the secure laptops that we could work literally from home. And, one of the things that our IT service provider highly recommended to all of us was that our platform has to be identical so that they could easily service us on a remote basis. And that's why, literally, like I said, we really would have had a hard time trying to work remotely with, a Microsoft versus Apple, or, various different platforms, which they would have had a hard time supporting. So once we got, like I said, all the equipment and the technology, was a simple matter to flip the switch and work from home.
Great. That's awesome. We also understand that your organization was able to then successfully convert what was normally an in-person or face-to-face meeting into a virtual event that had different benefits, not only from a cost savings point, but from the level of participation increases. Would you just be able to give us an idea of kind of what led to the success of that event, quantitative or qualitative benefits?
Absolutely. So to me, that was one of the most important aspect of what we did this past year. Now, because we were able to work remotely, I have to put our organization in some perspective. I, as well as all the patients and families we support, are immune compromised. And if we heard anything early on about COVID-19, this affected immune compromised people the most. So we had scheduled not only a scientific symposium, but also a patient and family conference. And in no way were we going to request any patient or medical doctor to travel to the Bethesda area for an in-person meeting. So it was a very, very easy decision to then actually mid to end of February, well before the WHO declared a pandemic, and just it was March 11th. We already were looking for a virtual provider, and we found one. And it was basically the challenge of us relearning a new system, because none of us had really done anything like that before. We knew how to run Zoom meetings, like Ricardo, you and Mac running this Zoom call right now. Running a major conference is not running a Zoom call. It's really orchestrating like a TV production, and that's what we ended up doing. So let me give you some rough numbers that puts what we did in some perspective. So for our scientific symposium, we generally would have had about 150 healthcare professionals showing up in Bethesda. We had over 800 registrations and those viewing the event from over 40 countries. And then for our patient and family conference, we generally would have roughly about 250 patient and family members in person, again in the Bethesda area. But instead, we had over 800 registration and attendees at the live virtual event over 3 days. And literally, we had over 1,200 viewers who actually registered to view some parts of it. Now, what we were able to do besides that was provide the return on investment to our sponsors. And as like anything else, that's how nonprofits survive. So we were able to protect over $500,000 in the revenue we would have normally expected, and we got it in on time. One, we were able to provide the necessary return on investment to all of our sponsors in a timely manner. But it also opened the doors up to many, many more individuals, not only in the U.S. that we would normally have support, but literally the impact was global. Because when I say over 40 countries for one and over 46 for another, that is a huge impact overall. And while what we do know is many organizations end up either postponing or canceling their events, the impact would be revenue and how one has to then manage what goes on. For us, it was always been a resource of choice for patients, and we always felt that we had to support patients. So that being one part of the answer. And the other part is when you think about the environment that we have been in, COVID was a topic that was beginning in February, and I was paying attention to it. And like I said, the decision to flip was very easy. The WHO declared a pandemic on March the 11th. We ran our first COVID webinar 2 days later on March the 13th. That's how fast we could respond. We did run it on Zoom, I will tell you, because we didn't have the other platform. But instead of having about 100 people join, we had over 800 live viewers. And wow. We were afraid, we weren't sure how many actually were going to show up for it. And then since then, we've run over 13 webinars just on COVID itself. So that's the demand for our patient base on a global basis. So, the biggest impact overall today is that we are now not only calling ourselves the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation, but we truly can tell anyone, well, we really went international. And we have all these participants from over 40 countries around the world today.
Absolutely. Well, it really shows that being proactive and really paying attention to the headlines and everything pays off. And not everything during this pandemic has been negative. I mean, obviously from your own experience and everything that's been going on at the organization, they are clearly going to miss you now that you're going to be retired, but you're leaving, I'm sure, great legacies, and you're allowing the organization to continue to move forward and obviously be more profitable during these very unusual times that the world is obviously living. So, Neil, we really, really appreciate it. I'm sure there's going to be great people listening to this particular interview that we're having today. We definitely wish you the best of success. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so very much. And I appreciate all the help and support and really the partnership over the years. So thank you.